It's Rowan, and hopefully you can hear me over the music which is playing like right behind the phone. It is, I should do a record haul sometime, because I've picked up a few this last couple months. Only a few, really, but here we've got Rip Rig and Panic's Attitude. There we go. If you're unfamiliar, this is the lineup with Nina Cherry, who later went on with a solo career. They are broadly in post-punk, you know, because post-punk is really not a genre proper. It's an era where there was a lot of really fun experimental kind of pop music going on. Let me see about moving this just a bit. Can we see me better? Just maybe a bit. It's a little unlevel on this. Really? Son of a bitch. No, now that's even worse. Hold on. This angle a little better. It's less, you know, wandering head with this much screen on top. So, you know, post-punk, it's not really a genre. It's an era where there was a lot of fun, experimental things going on, and, you know, with a lot of bands and musicians who were formerly classified as punk, such as Susie and the Banshees, and, you know, Johnny London from, you know, Sex Pistols went on with Public Image Limited, which, you know, was a bit more, you know, had a bit more of the punk energy, but he was doing a lot more with, you know, experimental, you know, synthesizer kind of things, and, you know, generally a bit more noodling about. This is very thoroughly in the jazz idiom, Rip Rig and Panic were, and they're probably one of my favorite, not goth bands, but very much, like, if you like, you know, more jazz, you know, influenced goth music, like Jeton de Mon, I really highly suggest Rip Rig and Panic, especially because they do a lot of weird, experimental soundscape kind of stuff that, Ross Williams was really known for outside of, you know, like, his vocal work, as in premature ejaculation. So, they were British, and like I said, they had Nina Cherry as a singer for a couple albums. Attitude is one of those albums, and she was better known as sort of, like, she did some more experimental stuff. You know, it was, like, a bit more in this, like, weirdo pop, you know, sort of soul pop sort of thing, but she definitely had this weirdo angle to it, like Live Like Sushi, I think, was her best-known solo one. So, this is a book haul. This is a long-belated book haul, because, Wednesday, the young man I'm cohabitating with was here all day. It was his day off, and he was being a fucking lump again, and, like, not doing anything, and that it kind of stresses me out when he does that. So these are mostly things that I've picked up from the free cart at the library, and I've got a bunch of those, and I'm probably going to, like, go through more of these and see, okay, what am I definitely going to read? What might I read? What do I really have no interest in reading or keeping? And then I've got a couple from Reddit Gifts, Book Exchange, and then, like, one that I actually bought, and then because it's on the stack of those three, then because it's, like, over on top of those three, it's just one of my favorites, but, like, you know, an omnibus collection. So first, the ones from the free cart. We've got the Harvey Collins Drink Guide, which is, you know, a bunch of cocktail recipes. We've got, like, you know, for Gin Ricky here, And we've got a bunch of blank pages for your own thing, so I'm going to add a bunch of my own, so if I ever become, like a cult hero, you will find this old 1985 edition with some of my own personal drink recipes, like the Perky Goth. That is a cocktail, and I made it up, and it's mine, and it's wonderful, and there are maybe 2 bartenders in the whole country who no, 3, who know how to make it. But it ends up being a bit too costly to make all the time, so... And then I've got this. It's from the National History Library. It's a revised edition by Clyde Cluckhorn and Dorothea Layton, and it is about the Navajo. And you see they're using an alternative spelling of Navajo. This was written in, or at least the revised edition was from, do we have a year? 1962, so I'm expecting this to come off kind of as a product of its time, but, if it's better than that, that would be great. If not, I don't think I'd keep it. I think I'd just, sell it as kind of an oddity. And then, one of my exes was really hoping I'd read this.
Hey, kitty.
This is Frank Herbert's Dune. I found this on the free card. I don't know how this stayed around on the free card long enough for me to get it, but, very, very much iconic. There was the David Lynch film based on it. Okay, yeah, originally published 1965. This is from the 19th printing in 1980, as you can probably tell from the cover art. This is very, late 70s, very early 80s font and painting choices for the cover. There's the David Lynch film with Kyle MacLachlan and Sting. Everybody knows about Sting and the Little Shorts. I'm sorry, it was beautiful. Speaking of David Lynch and Kyle MacLachlan, I remember Tim Burton on this A&E biography episode about Johnny Depp, and Burton was saying that, he sort of thinks of those, great director and leading man pairings from the, 40s and 50s, where there would be this director who'd work, largely with this one, leading man or leading lady. And, he thought, maybe, these directors think of this actor as a better-looking version of themselves, and that's why they've got such great chemistry together. And so he thinks of Johnny Depp as a better-looking version of himself. And, knowing a bit about Kyle MacLachlan's personal life, he's not... If you remember, he had a blog for a while. Him and his wife would update it from the point of view of their dogs. Which was just adorable, but that sounds like a David Lynch film, doesn't it? And I was like, yeah, I can see that. I can see that with MacLachlan and Lynch. The Lynch film, the Sci-Fi Channel miniseries, that was much closer to the book, so my ex was telling me, but he actually found it a lot more boring. He's just like, this is too close to the book. This is too close to the book. They're too, the acting is too downplayed to really grasp the space opera nature of the story, and so that's why he prefers the Lynch version. Specifically the Alan Smithy extended cut, because, he just feels that this got, so much right about the book that he's willing to forgive what, a lot of diehard fans of the book got, hate about it. So, I also found this, Simply Chicken, Favorite Family Recipes. I don't know if I'm going to keep this, or give it back, or send it to my friend who has this perverse need to collect, cookbooks. He's just fascinated by cookbooks. And then I've got a collected, I think this is a collected edition of This is the Adrian Mole Diaries. Yeah, this is a collected edition. And it starts with The Secret Diaries of Adrian Mole, 33 3/4. And, yeah, The Growing Pains of Adrian Mole, Secret Diary of Adrian Mole. Yeah, so this is like the 2 Adrian Mole books in one hardcover edition. I really loved the first one, so I am looking forward to reading the second one in this edition. So, that means I will be giving the library free cart my, simple edition of the first book. So, give a book, take a book, right? And then I've got this Sonny Bono autobiography. I kind of have a weird sort of respect for Sonny Bono. He was a great songwriter if we're looking at pop music. He was a very good songwriter as far as pop music goes. But yeah, he was not a good singer. He was not a good singer, but he saw talent in Cher, and, actually, they got married after, he was her manager for a while. And then, so I want to see how he tells things. And then we've got George Burns' memoir of, and biography of his wife, Gracie Allen. And my father was a big fan of the Burns and Allen television show. He grew up watching that in the 40s. He grew up watching that in the 40s and early 50s. I think it ran 1946 through 1951, and he loved Burns and Allen. So, good night. Say good night, Gracie. Good night, Gracie! So yeah, he loved her. And, like Gracie Allen, she kind of played like the ditz to Burns' straight man, but, when you watch her ditzy character, you can tell this character is so much smarter than, people, see her as at first. That, she comes off ditzy, but she knows what's going on. So I want to see, and I've also got a paperback edition of this that I got from the same cart a couple months before. So I'm going to give this back to the library along with the first Adrian Mole book. Because I'd rather keep a hardcover. I just... it's harder to misplace a hardcover. Then speaking of biographies, I just, had a tear on biographies. I've got this biography by Constantine Fitzgibbon, who's apparently usually a novelist. He wrote The Life of Dylan Thomas. I love Dylan Thomas. Yes, Welsh poet, I should have a preference for Oscar Wilde, and I do kind of, but I love Dylan Thomas. Dylan Thomas, right? Then I got Hillary Clinton's living history. I do want to read this. If I get kind of meh about it, I do want to give this to a friend of mine who he ended up he was a big Bernie booster early on in the 2016 campaign season, and he ended up getting in arguments with another friend of his about Hillary Clinton. And in an effort to, refute this friend's stances about Clinton, he ended up reading up about Clinton, and he's like, no, Clinton's the better candidate for this, and this reasons. And yeah, she won the popular vote by the widest margin since Eisenhower. That is how popular she was, but electoral gerrymandering, right? Gotta protect the slave states. That's why Electoral College exists to begin with. And then I really love Tanith Lee, and I hadn't read this one before. This is Darkness Eye, a novel of the Scarabée. And I do want to read this. Like I said, I love Tanith Lee. I've read a couple others of hers. White as Snow was my favorite one. It's a retelling of the Snow White story, largely from the point of view of the Wicked Queen. So, it touches on what is clearly but not worded as such, because it's a modern term, and this is, a medieval fairy tale, and, so it, like, touches on postpartum depression, and, you get, I loved that book. So then I also found, The Life of Greece by Will Durant. If you are familiar with me, outside of the YouTubes, I'm largely Hellenic polytheist, so anything about Greece, I've got to read it, especially if it's something old as shit like this. When was this published? Do we have a... It's not easy to find. Fuck it. Then I've got these. Now, this is, again, all these books here are stuff that I picked up from the library since, I want to say, the beginning of February. So, then we've got The Miracle Worker, by William Gibson, and I know that this kind of treats the Helen Keller story much like the Danish Girl treated, the story of Gerda Wegner and Lily Elbe. I know, trans person, I should remember Lily Elbe's name, but Gerda Wegner was a wonderful artist, and, I love Art Deco, and she does these stunning paintings. So it's a bit of a novelization based on actual events, so, I know that some liberties are taken, but, overall, it's, it's a worthy effort. Now, I also found this, and this is the second volume of the same... No, this is the first volume. This is the second volume. So I'm basically going to recreate a cover and print it out for the first volume, and just, like, I don't know, whatever. This is the Encyclopedia of the Great Composers and Their Music, and, so this is a 2-volume set, volumes 1 and 2, so, yeah, this is about, like, 78 great composers, and that is going to be indispensable. I want to say, when was this published? Looking at the cover art on the one that still has a cover, plus the binding here, I want to say 30s or 40s. I don't look these things over very thoroughly, so let us see. Yep, Volume 1, Garden City. Oh, 1953. I thought it was a little earlier than that, but, it's based on, a classical topic. And then this looked really like an interesting novel. It's like one of 2 novels in this. The Little Book, a novel by Selden Edwards. And, this is where I got it. An Irresistible Triumph, blah, blah, blah. The Little Book is the extraordinary tale of Wheeler Burden, California exiled heir of the famous Boston banking Burdens, philosopher, student of history, legend son, rock idol, writer, lover of women, recluse, half-Jew, and Harvard baseball hero. In 1988, Wheeler Burden is 47, living in San Francisco. Suddenly, he, still in his modern self, is wandering in a city and time he knows mysteriously well. Vienna. It is 1897, precisely 91 years before his last memory and a half-century before his own birth. So, I'm like, okay, I've got to read this. This, at the very least, it's got to be interesting, right? So, then the classic that I picked, that I've had forever, but it was with these because I was showing it to the young man I'm cohabitating with, and I was saying, he's got to read this. This is an omnibus edition of Quentin Crisp's memoirs, The Naked Civil Servant, How to Become a Virgin, and Resident Alien. And if you want to know anything about gay history, you've got to familiarize yourself with Quentin Crisp, as well as Derek Jarman. Then the one that I bought, we've got Songs to Earth and Sky, edited and with stories by Storm Constantine. This is from her Wraithu Mythos series. And then the ones from Reddit Gifts. These are things I've read before, and I was a little disappointed to get something that I'd read before, but one is an anniversary edition, and it's been a bit longer since I've read this. This is, of course, Ronald Hutton's Triumph of the Moon, about the rise of the modern pagan movement, and here we've got the 20th anniversary edition of The Spiral Dance by Starhawk, and, you know, since Starhawking became kind of a term on the pagan web for, you know, just suddenly changing the subject in the middle of, you know, a serious discussion that, you know, most people agree needs to be had, I kind of winced when I first saw that, but I'm like, no, I remember reading that, you know, 100 years ago, and, you know, so might as well see what the new edition is like. And so, oh, right, I also on the free cart, there were a bunch of issues of the New Yorker a few weeks ago, and these just have lovely covers, so I don't necessarily think I want to read these. I think I want to frame some of these, because, you know, the New Yorker has just the most gorgeous book cover. Just has some of the most gorgeous book covers, and we've got the Grand Tour, The World of Pleasure, and there are other books in the series that I should probably pick up, and I think that's it. I think that's all the books wandering around here, and I will splice these together. The record has ended, or at least that side has ended. And I will see you later with a clothed video of my outfit of the day. Alright, sweethearts, take care, bats and kisses, and I love you, and goodbye.